Hey guys, this is Pam Baldwin here. I wanted to share with you a few of the tips and techniques that I use when I'm using Photoshop Elements and some of the digital project life cards from Studio Calico. So if you've read through the post or if you've taken a peek at it, you know that what I'm talking about is other ways that you can use some of the digital project life cards for things other than project life. So one of the first things I did was make up some greeting cards. Some were for special occasions like birthdays, and some were just generic ones. And I'll show you just really quickly how to go about doing something like that. So if you're looking at my screen here, you've got I've got a variety of the journaling cards already open across the bottom in my project bin. I'm using Photoshop Elements version 13, but what I'm talking about are things that you can do in any version of Photoshop Elements. So please don't let that limit you in any way. So I'm going to make a card canvas or a canvas for my card. So I'm going up to File. I want to make a new blank file, and I am going to make this card about, let's see, I'm working with 8.5 by 11 paper. So I'm going to make it like, my card size is going to be 4 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. So I'm going to make my canvas 8 inches wide. I'm doubling the size of it so that I can fold it over, fold it in half. It's going to be 5.5 inches tall, and the resolution is going to be 300. That's kind of the ideal resolution that you would want for being able to print your projects. Photos in particular. So you could probably get away with a lower resolution using these cards, but you're going to have great quality if you go with a resolution of about 300. So one of the things I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier in terms of where to place my card on this big canvas is turn on one of the guides. And to do that, I'm going up to the top menu bar where it says View, clicking on New Guide, and I want to make a vertical line that's kind of going halfway down the page just so I know where my card is going to be folded in half. So I have, I'm going to put it at the 4-inch mark. And there it is. It's just a blue line. So when you go to print this, the guide doesn't print on it. This is just for me to be able to work a little bit more easily within the program. So I have a card on the bottom left. I'm going to drag it up from my project bin onto my new canvas, and you can see that it's probably just a little bit big for what I'm looking for. I'm going to resize it, and to do that I have the select tool on from my toolbar, and you can see a frame appears around the card with boxes at different points along the sides. To resize this, you want to make sure that you're using the corner boxes, and that's just going to maintain the proportions of the card and not distort the image at all. So I've shrunk it down a little bit, moved it over just a touch onto my canvas, and that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to be able to print this out as my card, and one of the things that I want to do with this card in particular is to add a few more layers and a bit of dimension. So I'm going to print a couple copies of it so that I can actually go hybrid and cut some of these candles out and add some glitter to the flames and just have fun making a card with it. So the way that I'm printing it, I'll give you a few of my printing tips, is I'm going to make a new canvas again because I'm going to print this on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And in my project bin, the very bottom, there's my new canvas, and there's the project that I just worked on here. So I have the select tool on again. I'm just going to click and drag it from my project bin right up to the top, and it's kept its size. You can see the outline there. I'm going to position this towards the top of my page, and I'm going to duplicate this picture. So to do that, I am going over to the layers panel on the right hand side. Using my mouse, I'm going to use the right click button and say duplicate this layer, and I'm not going to worry too much about the name. Right now it's just going to be a copy. With the select tool on, you're going to click and drag it down the page so that now you have 2 copies. So one of the things that I have run into is when I print this, sometimes it's hard to tell where I'm supposed to be cutting or using my paper trimmer because all of the white kind of blends together. So one of the things that I find I often do is just change the color of the background to a very light gray so that when I'm printing it, I know where the separation is of where I'm supposed to be cutting. So I'm going to do that now. I will click on the background layer and then click over on the color swatches that's on the bottom left of the toolbar. Select a very light gray color because I don't want to waste too much ink. Say OK. Now I'm going to grab my paint bucket and click to where that background is on my image And there you go. So it might be hard for you to see on your screen, but now when I print this, there will be a very light gray strip, and I will know that I can cut that part off, trim down my two separate pieces of cards. I can go ahead and cut out whatever I want from one of the cards, and then this other card up top here will be my base. So that is a quick, easy way for how to print these cards. A few of the printing tips that I think are important when you're using the digital cards. So I'll show you how I would set this up to print on my printer. I'm using a Canon Pixma. I think that seems to be a common one. I see a lot of people talking about it on the message boards in general. So when I'm looking at my Photoshop Elements print menu and my printer is installed, you're going to want to take a look at the settings that you're printing this on. So click on the button that says Change Settings, and I'm going to go right to the Advanced Settings so I can get an idea of what everything's happening here. I'm going to make sure that I'm printing this as photo printing, and that's just going to make sure that I have really good quality in my final product. The paper that I'm using is a matte photo paper. I actually use just the Staples brand. It's actually a really nice heavy weight, and it's bright white on both sides of the paper. So it actually works quite well. I'm going to say that it's 8.5 by 11, that's correct. And in the page setup, because I've sized my cards already pretty specifically, I want to make sure that it's not going to try to bleed over the page like you would want to if you were doing regular photo printing. So when you're looking at the page setup, look at this part where it says amount of extension and make sure that it's all the way to the smallest portion there so that you don't lose any of the images from your card, and it stays the same size that you've set it up to be in your Photoshop Elements environment. So those settings are all good for me. I'm going to say OK, OK, and then I would go ahead and say Print It. Okay, so that is to make kind of a standard size card. One of the cool things about using the digital products is that you can resize them and reshape them for whatever you want. So here's an example of just one of the generic cards. I believe this card came from the Carolina Moon release, and I want to make this into just a little square card. So again, I'm going to make a new canvas. I'm going to make it a 4x4 card. So I'll make it 8 inches wide by 4 inches tall so that when I fold it in half it's still 4 inches. I'm going to turn on a guide again so that I know where the halfway point is on my card. Click and drag the card up to the right hand side of the canvas, and I'm going to resize it again just by pulling on the corners. Okay, so you can see that because this card originally had rounded corners, I'm going to have to figure out a way to make sure that that doesn't print on there. And I think that's actually okay like that. One of the things I'll tell you, if I wanted this to be much bigger, and obviously now I have part of the card that's overlapping the border or the guide that I had set up down the middle of the card, and I don't really want that part printed. So what I'm going to do is just a little cheat to kind of get around it. I'm going to make myself a white rectangle. It doesn't have to be any particular size. So I've clicked on the rectangle tool on the left hand side and it's selected in the white color. I'm going to go ahead and draw this rectangle so that it matches up to the edge of the grid. And because it's sitting on top of the card layer in the layers panel, it covers it up. So when I go to print this, now you won't be able to see any of that border hanging over the edge. So that's one handy thing to know if you're trying to reshape them rather than being rectangular to being square, for instance. So I just want to take a second and talk about how awesome this particular card is from the birthday card set included with the Galileo release. Okay, so when you look at this, it's part of the birthday card set, obviously, but you could probably use this card for like almost any occasion. I looked at it and I thought you could totally use it for like baby showers or wedding showers or like just pretty much, or Christmas. Christmas was another thing. And all you would really have to do is change the colors of the presents that are on there. So I thought I'd show you quickly how to do that. The example I'm going to do is to show you just how to change all of them to white so that you can print it out as just like a black and white image and then go ahead and embellish it with glitter or with watercolors or whatever you like. So on the left hand side, you're going to look for a paint bucket. And right now I have the paint color set to white. It's the foreground color or the top color that's on the color swatch over here at the bottom side of the toolbar. And then looking at the image rather, all you have to do is click on the different colors and it's going to change them for you to white. So you'll want to make sure that you get all of the bits and pieces, and to do that I'm just going to increase the size of the image on my screen and then go ahead and keep clicking away. Okay, so once you have your entire card filled in, like I said, you're just going to drag it onto your card base. I will put it onto this one and just cover this up for now. And there you go. So you can go ahead and print that out there. You'll notice if you look really closely that there's one part of it where the outline of the previous color is still visible. I would go ahead and just grab the eraser tool and erase away. Just go ahead and it'll get rid of that one little bit for you if you're kind of OCD like I am at times. So there we go. There is the white base, and then what I did when I printed this card out as well was use the thank you stamp set, the digital version of it. And I'm just going to use the congratulations one in particular. So I have that open in my project bin at the bottom. Click and drag it up onto your canvas. You can resize it to however you see fit. And you have a card that is now functional for all different kinds of occasions. It's a super versatile one. I'm actually really looking forward to the possibility of using this one for Christmas this year. Okay, so one of the other things I said you could do with these digital cards is to make them into pattern paper. And what I mean by that is when you purchase these digital cards, even though they're sized at 3 by 4, the quality of them is actually so good that you can make them really quite large and have a good outcome when you print them. So I'm going to print this as if I wanted to make it like a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of pattern paper. To do that, I'm making a new canvas at 300 pixels per inch. And all you have to do is pick the card that you want. So I have this one that's a star pattern here that's really colorful and cool. Drag and drop it onto your 8.5 by 11 canvas and then just go ahead and resize and stretch it out. And when you print it using the photo printing settings on like a matte photo paper, the quality of it is going to be pretty fantastic still, and I think you'll be excited about it. It's kind of awesome. One of the things you should know as well, here, I'll pull up another example. Here's another journaling card. I'm just going to drag it onto the same page. And I like this pattern up here with the blue polka dots and then the small tiny black dots in there as well, but I'm not really interested in having the white border there. So I'm just going to, first of all, rotate this, and by holding down the Shift key on my keyboard while I click on the mouse at the same time, it's just going to make sure that it snaps into place at a 90-degree turn. And then pull on the corners again to resize it. Just a little bit more. And there you go. Now you have an entirely new sheet of pattern paper that you can print that will coordinate perfectly with your kits. And it's a digital version. You can print as much of it as you want. It's probably going to take up a lot of ink. Word of warning, but you can print as much or as little as you like. And one of the other cool things about this is that you can adjust these cards so that you get the kind of scale of the pattern that it is that you're looking for. So let's say I knew that I wanted to use like a 4 by 4 square of this pattern. And I wouldn't be able to do that with just the plain journaling card. And I wanted it to be smaller, like a smaller scale, or like when you're using a 6 by 6 paper pad, for instance, just shrink it down a little bit, and now you have like a smaller scale pattern there for whatever your project is. And these cards are often like they coordinate with the kits, but they're not exactly the same. So I just think that's kind of a cool idea that you can make a brand new sheet of pattern paper to go along with your kits. Get so much mileage out of them. It's pretty cool. Okay, so one of the other things I wanted to say was that you can actually turn these into like art prints. So here's an example of a card. I believe this one is also from the Carolina Moon release, and it's pretty cool. I mean, big city lover. This looks like it should be a poster hanging up somewhere for sure. And I find that sometimes I do end up like hoarding some of my project life cards and wanting to save them. for different projects, or frame them and hang them up around my house. With the digital version of these Project Life cards, you can do that, which is really awesome. So let's say I wanted to make this an 8x10 art print that I was going to just print out and like put into a frame. I'm just going to make a new canvas, and again, all you're doing is clicking and dragging the card up onto your new canvas, making it however big or small that you want. And you're going to find the quality of this printed is great. So that's one more fun thing you can do with them. Okay, so with the Galileo release this month, Life Love Paper has these awesome birthday cards in the digital collection as well. And one of the things that's really cool about these ones in particular is that when you open them up, the PNG files are actually on a transparent background instead of being on like a solid white background like some of the other cards are from the digital main. So because they're transparent, that means that you can use these as like overlays. So here's a photo of my son from his birthday this year, and I have the card selected in the panel, the project bin down at the bottom. I'm going to just click and drag that up on top of my photo. I've made a couple of adjustments to this photo, so I have to drag the layer right up to the top so it's sitting on top. But then I can resize and pull it down on my photo. So now this is like an overlay of that card right on top of my photo. Here's another example of a photo from my daughter's birthday, and I wanted to use the Eat Cake card to go along with it. So here's the Eat Cake card. I'm just going to click and drag it up onto my photo. And how adorable is that? Right? So you can resize it, reposition it, and now it works like a photo overlay, all from the digital products. So those are just a few more ideas about ways that you can use the digital Project Life cards in different types of projects outside of Project Life. And I hope you had fun. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment and I will get back to you. Thanks.